Okay, lovely. So, very good morning to you, Hiranmai, General Counsel for WeWorks India. And thank you for the time taken out to be part of this initiative called the Global Resolve Mission Mediation. It's an attempt to sensitize and, push forward the awareness issue on the subject and the concept of mediation. And through which then we are inviting influencers and thought leaders like yourself to share your perspective, views, and suggestions. So, with your permission, we'll probably get started.
No, thank you, Sanjeev, and good morning to you as well. And I really feel honored to be on this show with you, and because I am a strong advocate of mediation as a procedure, and that's something I use not just in our professional life, but something that we use regularly, especially when you have children. That's how you practice. That's where your practice begins. So definitely, I think it's my pleasure to be on this show and share my thoughts.
Lovely, great. And you rightly said that, you get to practice mediation and the tools of mediation and the techniques of mediation all across, be it family, office, or, in business. So yes, definitely. So great, we'll get started. Now, the very first and the very basic question, which I normally kind of, start asking is, what to you is mediation? Is it something more than an assisted negotiation, or we still are kind of equating it with negotiation?
That's a very interesting question. For me, mediation is all about arriving at a solution amicably, right? If I have to really get into the typical court process and I have to argue, there is this ADR of arbitration as well, which is probably less formal than what the court system is about, but definitely very close to it. But mediation is all about voluntarily going into something with the sole objective of coming to a solution and not literally going on merits, as you would argue in a court. So it's all about that.
Great. So in a way, through your answer, you've taken care of my next two questions. Is it about solution or justice?
Definitely solution, Sanjeev. It's all about solution.
And then where we get stuck is because half of the world, or maybe more than that, so as I interact with various stakeholders, though I would have loved to hear a bit of more awareness about mediation, but I end up talking to people, and for them, yes, it's part of ADR, but you speak about ADR, for them it's ADR is arbitration. So 90% of the the people I end up talking to, for them ADR is arbitration, and yes, ADR, arbitration and mediation, but they continuously speak about arbitration. Do you face the same situation all across?
There was a time, Sanjeev, at least in my industry, when you're right, I did face that. But of late, I have seen that there is a lot of awareness around mediation. So in fact, our lawyer partners or our consultants, they have also been suggesting mediation of late, I think. So even the lawyers there are having a paradigm shift on how they look at all these ADRs. And they are the ones who are actually educating their clients on mediation. So that awareness definitely is spreading. And as and when you have more contracts with MNCs, and we have this ease of doing business in India, and we are promoting a lot of MNCs to come into India, I feel that this awareness of mediation is definitely increasing.
Okay, so that's heartening, and it's good to know that there are people who are talking more and more, and because of a dialogue, then there's more understanding about the concept, and even if there are some apprehensions or some notions which may not be allowing people to accept it or embrace it, at least there is a dialogue, and people can then rectify the issues and understanding, I would say.
Yes, indeed. I think a lot depends on the GCs, I'll be very honest. And today's GC is just not a reactive lawyer, right? So a lot is dependent on the role of a GC. Again, where there has been a paradigm shift from a GC being a reactive lawyer to be a strategic partner to the entire management. So from their perspective, the way they explain to their management as to why mediation is much better than probably even an ADR arbitration, I think that plays a very important role. And we see more and more GCs adopting that route nowadays. So I think that has definitely resulted in mediation being so widespread and being talked about, and the awareness really rising.
Got that. And I think that is where we slightly take a slight turn in terms of the views, because now you talk about specifically a perspective of a GC. So once you're part of an organization, you have to balance the interests of the organization. And on the other side, we keep saying mediation is primarily about interests and needs and less about powers and rights, right? So that is, I think, where it's a very delicate balance which needs to be taken a call about. And GC, because of the strategic position you are in organization, I think you need to keep evaluating what makes sense. So how difficult or easy it is to kind of convince people around, especially the CFO, the CEO, because for them it's a beaten path. Okay, you have an issue, send the file to the legal guy, set them right, ensure that we win the case or something like that. So how easy or difficult is this?
I would say there's a change of mindset. Yes, it is not extremely easy to convince them, but at the same time, it depends on how you convince them. It's influence the influencer, right? At the end of the day, I think what I have adopted, and I would say I have been fairly successful in working with my management on adopting mediation where practical, because we can give them that perspective of what it takes to probably go ahead and argue a case in the court, right? It's very simple because then their knowledge is limited, right? They depend on you. And when you tell them that, look, either you just keep your ego, it's all of, if you're just talking about justice at the end of the day, all you need to do is just tell them, oh, look, it's very easy. We've got a strong case. Let's just go to the court. We will win. But nobody understands the entire procedure. First of all, it takes a lot of time. Even if you get something in your favor, maybe 2 years, 3 years down the line, it's not that easy. What is it that we are looking at? Are we trying to look at just justice, or are we trying to look at a solution where it's a win-win situation for everyone? And with your experience, the GC's experience in the litigation world as well, it is very easy to then obviously show them the picture and then, guide them to thinking your way and showing them that it's in their interest if we can go to see. We don't close the doors of the court or arbitration just because we go into a mediation, right? At the end of it, it works, it works. If it doesn't, there's always this door that's open. And it's up to us as to how long do we want to drag this mediation also, or do we see a willingness on the other side as well, right? So once you convince that and you're able to make the management see your way, I think they do understand, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to really get into litigation these days.
True. Yeah, so that's very interesting. But I normally pick up a point, when I've been interacting again, with many stakeholders, what is happening is we are saying somewhere mediation is good or preferable because the alternatives are bad, right? So somewhere if you see, because I'll have uncertainty, because I'll have the time issue, the cost issue, so much of stuff, hence why not try mediation? And exactly the same issue at times I have with the judiciary and with other people, who will say that because the courts are burdened, there is an infrastructure issue, why don't we use mediation? Now, what we fail to understand that we are not evaluating mediation as a standalone option, as a first port of call. Why we are not able to appreciate that mediation per se in isolation has some inherent benefits. It has the ability of, you rightly said, give and take, creative solutions, thinking out of the box, and most important, preserving relationships. Now, for all these 3-4 points, which I'm talking about as a highlighting features of mediation, I don't need to be looking at the alternative or the negatives in the alternative, right? So what you said is excellent, that yes, we are not closing doors to the court or to my other alternatives of arbitration, but why not look at mediation as a standalone option, first port of call, because of the inherent benefits? So do you think we end up comparing, because it's easy for us to convince that, guys, court has an issue, ABC problem, so please use mediation. We're not saying mediation is good, try mediation, else we'll go to alternatives. Do you see where I'm coming from? Bit of...
No, definitely. I get what you're saying. See, I'm definitely with you. As I've already told you, I'm a strong advocate of mediation, and I feel that it's always better to come up with solutions. Right? At the end of the day, it saves time, effort, and as you rightly said, it's us also evolving, right? Coming up with solutions. How best can we sustain ourselves in this entire industry and keep those relations? How can we think out of the box? How can we show respect to each other? And all these are something that a mediation does for you. And these have been pretty successful in quite a few countries, right? We know about New South Wales. We have, those are judicially enabled mediations, but they've been pretty successful. Be it New South Wales, Australia, your Brazil, Italy, Turkey. I mean, they've been doing very well. In India, I still feel, and believe me, these are my personal views, not that of my organization that I represent. I feel that we still have to reach that mindset of thinking that mediation is the only solution. So when you ask me a categoric question, leap that you take, it's not leap of faith. It has to be gradual. You have to make those baby steps to reach where you are. But ultimately, yes, mediation as a solution, I think, is the best thing that can happen for everyone.
Got it. So I mean that was a pretty straightforward thing coming from the heart. So I appreciate. Now another concern connected in terms of seeing the relevance and the efficacy of mediation as a tool. Now, would it be different if it's a multinational culture because they have something to compare again with other jurisdictions, because somebody can actually pick up a phone, or somebody can look at a case study that yes, in Brazil, in Australia, something is happening, versus a Indian setup. So that is one, the mindset issue. Second thing is, even being part of one setup, irrespective whether it's a multinational or a transitional organization or Indian, you still end up having a dispute or interaction with a party who might be sitting with a different mindset. So what exactly is the again, I would say, the mindset or the view of different parties? So looking at inside out perspective, so even if I'm convinced, when I have a party where I have to interact with them and I have to extend an arm and suggest a mediation, what kind of issues or impediments you face?
Yeah. So what I have noticed, again, this is more from an experience rather than hearsay, is that many a times, as you rightly said, one party may be willing to go into it with an open mind. However, the other party, again, it could be an MNC, it could be an Indian entity, or whatever entity it is, they may probably not come with that mindset for them, because probably they really don't understand what mediation is all about at the end of the day. They probably look at it as an ADR like arbitration. So when they come, they probably, again, because I have seen cases, again, without naming parties and all, I have seen where they come into it with the mindset supposedly for mediation, for a solution, but the moment they enter into it, they actually start on merits totally, right?
Okay.
They just talk about why, what. They're not here with a mindset to listen to the other party, right? They do not appreciate the fact that it's about give and take, right? We are all here for that. So they probably look at it as another system of arbitration, or maybe another court system, and just a step towards, before probably they enter into the next step. So it's the first leg of litigation for them, which then obviously it does not, it's in vain. It does not fructify the whole thing. It makes it infructuous, the whole mediation. So that mentality is something which, obviously, again, thankfully, mediation is as voluntary. And if we feel, if the other parties actually come up with an open mind and wanting to come up with a solution, but if you feel that the other party is not responsive, at least what mediation gives you is an opportunity to say, okay, looks like, sorry, it's not working. So we're looking at solutions. It's not solutions. It's something else that their party is looking. So we have no other go but then to obviously go ahead with the next leg, which is an arbitration, if that's there in your agreement, or directly to the court. But yeah, these are things that we face. And I think, again, it's going to take some time, and that will require more of spreading awareness about what mediation is all about, the pros of it, and how one can actually benefit, and changing that mindset.
Okay, so even if there is a disagreement in terms of the initiation of a mediation, in spite of they coming with the open mindset, it's still amicable to an extent, or a mutually acceptable position that, okay, it's not going to work because of ABC reason, because both the parties have taken a stand. And I think because of either a system pressure, right? Or for some reasons, known, unknown, they are not able to kind of dilute that position, or bridge the gap. And hence they agree, or you yourself agree that, okay, let's look at a more formal arrangement, which can be arbitration or whatever it is there. So again, we try to look at that, let's not burn the bridges, because frankly, we still promote that mediation is not only the first port of call. it can actually come to your rescue at any point in time. Because to us, even a court Phoenix mediation is a best example where you actually chose to litigate in the first place, right? So where after fatigue, after frustration.
Again, purely based on my experience, it totally depends on the lawyer. Absolutely depends on the lawyer. There are, because at the end of the day, when see, they are client focused now. And this is a trust that they kind of build with us. And with this trust, obviously, things can make a lot of difference.
Right. That was very interesting. I mean, you said it depends on the legal partner. If I were to, like, repeat what you said. And frankly, what our wish list would be, our dream would be that it depends on the party, because that is where, there's a small gap still, that the lawyer tells them you have a good case. The lawyer tells them better to mediate. The lawyer tells them, yes, we are saying it's not a lawyer, it's not an advocate, it's a partner for you. Point taken. But a bit of struggle, and it's like, my personal view for now, but then, like, I see it resonating, like, all across, that parties are not willing to take the onus, right? In the sense that they are the beneficiaries. So good, bad, ugly, challenge or rewards, anything which happens is for them, right? But somehow people have come out and confided. They said that, maybe we have got conditioned that let someone help us, or let someone decide what is good for you, in the sense that even if you go to the court, so we are fighting, we have a long list of prayers, like we are putting up such a thick petition, all facts, everything. Finally it comes down to the prayers, that this is what the relief we seek. And then the order is there, the judgment is there, and then when we read and we are not still not happy, but we still, okay, somebody who is sitting at the right place actually have understood what we wanted, though he's not been able to give us what we really sought. So are we kind of shying away from the responsibility of taking the onus of our own dispute, and knowing well within ourselves that this is something which is going to hit back? So is it something where the conditioning of mind needs to be blamed? And it might take time, of course, like, it's evolving.
No, I think so. What you're asking me, if I just rephrase your question, Sanjeev, is that when we talked about beneficiaries and we talked about lawyer partners, so during a mediation setting, would you want your lawyers to sit with you, or is it that it's just two parties sitting together and hashing it out and hustling together and trying to come up for a solution? Or is it that we really need our lawyers to help us probably think? Is that your question?
No, so all I'm saying is, let the legal partners be the enablers, facilitators, sit with us, help us decide, help us take an informed call. But with regards to the call, with regards to this entire, like, the internal, the due diligence you need to do, thinking through the visualization of, the preemption of creative solution, that is something which should come from within, because you very well know as a party in dispute that what is ailing, what can be a potential solution, and how you are able to drive the narrative. So let the other partners just facilitate, but not drive the narrative.
No, I get what you're saying. So, which is what I think when we talked about the role of a GC.
Yeah.
Right. This is what I talked to you about, right? When you were saying that, how do you work with your stakeholders? So, as you rightly said, GC is an enabler now.
Right.
So it totally depends on how your GC thinks also, to some extent, because your GC is the one who can then speak to the stakeholders, the management, and, as you said, help them understand, guide them as to how coming to a solution is probably what is in the benefit of each and every party, right? How is it that we can, because we talked about all these out of the box, think that down, and we spoke all the stakeholders, and that was something that was easily accepted. And believe me, we closed it within one session of that mediation.
Excellent.
So they have. But having said that, again, it is trust. So here my stakeholders and my management trust me so much, and they've seen our business-oriented approach as well.
Sure.
Right. So we are called more of business lawyers right now. We are not normal lawyers or commercial lawyers or chief commercial lawyers or business lawyers or business enablers here right now.
Right.
So they're more than happy for us to lead this. Having said that, what I have also done as a practice is I always have someone from my business teams who are able to take decisions on those mediation calls. And there are times when I ask them to drive the situation. I obviously started, then I put down the whole background, I tell them where they're coming from, and then I will nudge my business leaders to take the decisions. So it appears that though it's being driven by us, but it appears as though they are the ones who are taking the decision. And believe me, they are the ones who are taking the decision. It's not a question of parents, they are the ones, but it's the collective effort at the end of the day.
I got that. And here, like, so as my previous example, which I was giving was, then I'm in any case, like, assuming, and rightly so, that the GC for me is an extension of the party in dispute. So you're very much part of the management. You've been empowered by them to kind of, sit, represent, and take it further. And what you're saying is absolutely a great practice, that you have a business team member sitting with you there. So it's a very optimum balance, if I were to say, a perspective where, like, you can internally.
The very first mediation session, we don't put timelines. I mean, that's my experience, because if you're already going with the mindset of timelines, you're just looking at it as an alternative before the next leg of litigation. You're not going with the solution-oriented approach, right? So your first session, you never do that, because you're just trying to analyze how the other party is reacting as well, right? And you do get a mindset. And also a lot depends on the mediator, right? At the end of the day. So you will probably, because the mediator obviously sits with each party separately as well, right? Because he talks to each party separately, trying to understand the mindset, the issues, the heart-to-heart talks that need to happen, their perspective, and then conveys that to the other parties. There's an important role of the mediator to play here. Basis all those, I think that's when you see whether this is heading into the right direction.
Sure.
When you feel that, yes, there seems to be a solution-oriented approach, there seems to be things where you're actually looking at probably arriving at a solution, we are more than happy to probably extend it to whatever time it takes. Maybe it will take more time than you normally would have thought, but when you see that attitude, more than happy to, because that's what you want at the end of the day.
Sure.
However, if you feel it's a vibe that you get from the other side that, look, I don't think so, it's just a dilly-dallying from their end. They're just not here to, probably come up with a solution. They're just buying time. If you get that vibe and that feeling, that's when you need to put your foot down and say, look, I don't think so. We will look at it for this much timeline, or this is what we have. And after that, if it doesn't work out, sorry, then we shut down talks. So that pressure sometimes probably is required.
Got it. No, I mean, that's nicely put. I was to come to, the next part, which was about the mediators and the skill set. So, I mean, let me kind of, take this particular question. What exactly are we looking in a mediator, depending on the experience you already have with mediators during mediations, and what is the mechanism to choose? Because half of the problem, what people have come back and told us, is that the trust issue is, the key. Because you propose someone and the other guy might say that, because a party is proposing. So there is already, some understanding.
A bias.
Yes, so there will be a potential bias. But somebody will have to probably, nominate one person. So how does it start? What's been your experience in any specific issues you found out with or lacking in terms of the mediators you've kind of, came across or you kind of, consulted?
See, that's I think very subjective, honestly speaking.
Yeah.
I'll be very honest.
Sure.
As far as choosing mediators are concerned, I think, again, that's difficult. You're absolutely right. We may probably nominate one, and not necessarily that person would have to have experience in the field that you're really looking at, in the sense that the subject matter expertise, because at the end of the day, I'm not here really looking for a lawyer per se, right? Because if that's what I wanted to do, a typical lawyer who will look at my case on merits, I would rather go into arbitration. But I am looking for a person who can be solution oriented, right? So reputation in the market about such mediators as to the fact that, yes, they are solution oriented. They have a knack of making people feel comfortable. They are there to probably, they have a good listening skill. They have the right to be unbiased and be able to probably guide each party into giving a realistic analysis and telling them, look, this is what I think, but not obviously imposing his or her decision. So those are the reputational things that you look into, just going on merits. And I think that's very important from a mediation perspective, making the other person feel comfortable and letting them know that, look, nobody's forcing you here.
Sure.
It is something that you need to probably come up with. It's a solution that you need to come with. You be creative. How do you think can you guys come up with a solution? What do you think is a win-win situation?
Sure.
Right? That's what I think the mediator has to guide us with.
Okay. Okay. So one very interesting question which I've been asking also to the promoters of the businessmen who are sitting right there, and then so it's for them, it's like it's a very promoter-driven organizations. So for them, they have so-called teams, but at the end, they are the people who take calls. Right now, very surprisingly, so when this question was put, that unlike an arbitration where you end up choosing one arbitrator, the other parts that, have you somehow at any point in time faced that there's a mediator nominated? I won't call it appointed, but nominated, and he runs the process. And somewhere there's a afterthought crossing the mind and say, this guy seems to be going the other way, or at least not helping the cause. Any such thing? Because it impacts the the integrity, I would say, or the very well-being of the mediator.
No. Sanjeev, thankfully and honestly, I can say I have been fortunate enough, for my organizations where I worked, have been fortunate enough where we really haven't faced this problem. Maybe we are
so
the very few of them, but definitely we've not faced these problems.
Okay, great. Coming back to the organization you're part of now, do we have a SOP that for every and any dispute, more or less, we'll try mediation to start with, where we want to give it a quick shot, or a quick try. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But let's not something move to the court or arbitration without at least trying it out, whether it's a one session or whatever time you. Any kind of SOP or a policy in place like this?
So we definitely have policies in place, and as I said, I am again very clear that litigation, if any, has to be the last resort, and the management is absolutely in sync with this.
Okay, fair enough. Couple of them more. One is, as part of the organization, you have ideally two kind of disputes, right? I mean, of course, we are talking about community and family and other things which are separately to be dealt with. But within an organization, one are commercial disputes, which are business disputes, right? Which emanate from an agreement or a contract with a third party, normally customer, vendors, and all that. And then the second one is the workplace disputes. Now, are we in your case, using the mediation tools or techniques for either of them, both of them, or it's primarily for commercial and less for workplace, or we are using it for both?
If you're talking about formal mediation process,
yeah,
well, formal mediation goes for commercials. Within our organization, again, we do try to resolve anything and everything amicably as far as it goes. So if you want me to say that, oh, there's a formal mediation process in place for resolving these, no. But definitely, I would say there's informally, we've always tried to settle whatever we can amicably.
So the HR team somewhere takes the role of the mediator to an extent. And
definitely.
Okay, fair enough. So which is normally what we get to hear at many places, and that's fine. But especially where the workforce is slightly on a which is large, and they have this regular issues and frictions, and it's not created, but they happen because when you have so many people working. So whether it's one department or another, and we've even interacted with mediators who've created a niche for themselves, working only on intra-organizational disputes, right? So from that perspective, the idea was that in other jurisdictions there have been mediation policies within the organization. And in fact, someone actually told me that they've created an AI as well for that. Some kind of a program also. So you can log in and put your grievance, and somebody will take care of it, and depending on the stakes and of course the gravity of the situation, but that's fine. Okay, maybe a last bit. would you feel a codification of mediation, right? As we speak, like, mediation bill is being discussed in the parliament. Would it help the cause, or it might have a potential to stifle the creativity and, like, the way arbitration actually got more procedural over the period? And mediation, we keep talking about, creativity and out of the box, and and confidentiality as well, and flexibility in terms of party autonomy, or the process procedures. Would codification help the cause? For sure, the benefit is that, it'll make it formal, and people will be talking more and more about it. There will be laws. So half of the guys who talk about enforcement and talk about absence of any legal force, they might be like, happy, or at least be more comfortable. But would it generally help the cause, the codification of the law or the concept?
You know, that's something which I have been thinking about it a lot, Sanjeev.
Yeah.
And I have seen, as I told you, about other jurisdictions where codification has definitely helped. So it definitely has its own pros and cons, right? And from a pros perspective, at least parties will then be forced to evaluate mediation, right? Before actually going in for any kind of litigation. And once they go there with that mindset that, oh, look, we have been asked to try and settle, there again, I think it is very, very important for us to see how the mediator is. So we really need to train mediators there, have qualified, experienced mediators who would then be able to guide these parties, saying that, look, we are here to kind of come up with a solution. It's not about merits. It's about trying to see if we can avoid anything of those sorts. So you may come back to me and say, Hiranmai, it's like what we talked about, that then it won't become standalone, but a step before the ADR. But I think, as I said, it's all about baby steps, right? So it's something that people can look at. And then, though, as you rightly said, the autonomy part is not there, but I still feel a lot will depend on the mediator and the flexibility and the mindset. So if there are a couple of success stories there, I think then it's going to be great. Having said that, when I talk about the cons, you're right. It's like sometimes people will feel that they're forced, right? They will feel that, look, why? It's we could have gone in arbitration. Probably we would have got our solution maybe 6 months down the lane, 8 months down the lane, whatever it is.
Nudging you, or like, slightly requesting you, but the request comes with a force, right? It's a diktat that, you go and, like, try and settle, and then people go and then just spend 1 month, and they come back and they say, okay, now we have not been able to, for ABC reason. So the connected question is, in case you already have with your organization some cases which have been there in the courts, right? Some litigation which are ongoing. If given a choice, would you be still willing to explore, even if the court does not, like, say or ask you to mediate? Would you still want to review the case and, okay, we spend 6 months or 1 year or 2 years? Can we, like, look at from a different glass or a different prism and say, okay, guys, is there a way to, because somebody will have to take that initiative?
No, you're right. So I think we're always open to that, Sanjeev. But again, more of my view.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm always open to it. And if I have an opportunity, I would definitely nudge people that let the, court, the proceedings take its own course. But if there is even a slight, I would say, chance of us trying to settle it amicably, go ahead with that dialogue.
So
and see if you guys can do it. I would definitely nudge my.
Which means on your own, and you don't wait for the government, I mean, for the judiciary or for a judge or a bench to actually ask you to explore that. Okay, which would mean that somebody will have to, like, really sit with a fresh perspective and say, okay, we've been fighting them for, like, last 2 years, right? Forget about adjournments or, like, adverse orders or whatever it is. But at the end, like, can we relook at this entire thing afresh? So whether it's a changed mindset or a changed person altogether on that seat, and, like, he views or reviews this entire thing. So that, you say, is a possibility. So that's good. It just speaks about a lot of open mindset, what we really expect. So great. I think I'm done with my set of queries. Anything you would want to, like, have as a passing statement for mediators, wannabe mediators, or the other side parties? I think that'll be good to, like, hear from you.
Yeah, Sanjeev, first of all, I'd say I think you've been doing a great job with this, spreading this entire awareness of mediation. And I hope with this talks, we all can make a difference in
Sure.
spreading why this is very important. At the end of the day, I said, there's conflict everywhere, right? And just going to the courts is not a solution for resolving conflicts. Conflicts are there in our professional life, conflicts are there in our personal life. And it takes up a lot of our time, energy, cost, ability. And I think if we actually set aside those conflicts or try not, you know, just working on our egos rather than come up with a solution oriented approach, I think the world is going to be a better place at the end of the day for each one of us. And I think we can be much more productive, use that time, energy to probably enhance your business, your knowledge, your skills, come up with more, transformational solutions to the world at large. So I think mediation is something that we should all look at. And from a mediator's perspective, I would just say that it's very, very important for you to be able to guide people and let them feel that, we are here to come up with a solution.
Great.
And
so
that's the key.
Sure. Lovely. So as we say, opportunity lost and opportunity cost, we need to really understand those things as well. So I think that was a wonderful session. And thanks for speaking from heart, and you've actually been on top of it, and I can see how closely you relate to mediation as a concept, and you've been trying the organization as well. So I think that was lovely, and we'll thank you for the time spent, having taken out time. And I'm sure for the round tables what we are planning going forward, we'll definitely come back and invite you as well.
Thank you, Sanjeev. This was really interesting, and I'm so happy that I could share my thoughts here. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.